How will Victor Wembanyama's absence alter the future for the San Antonio Spurs? We know for certain that it's altering the NBA awards race landscape. The Sixers are doing their best Sisyphus impression, and should we be taking the Minnesota Timberwolves more seriously as a Western Conference dark horse? That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts every day. With me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. He's the man of 1,000 podcasts, Matt Moore.
Glad to see you back, Doug. I'm glad you found that Kemba Walker bobblehead. Good job there, bud.
Like a lot of the teams that are coming off this post-All-Star break, I was a little hungover after that win against Los Angeles. The Hornets doing well there. All right, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, our Prince of Petty, it's Ace.
What's going on? Glad to see, Doug was really out with his emu farm. He just didn't want to tell anybody. That's all.
Oh, I've heard a lot of variations on that, but not that particular one. That's good. All right, let's get to some more serious news in the NBA. NBA fans and pundits alike are still reeling from the news that Victor Wembanyama will miss the remainder of the season due to a blood clot in his shoulder. Matt and Hayes did a great job covering it yesterday as it broke. But let's talk about how this impacts the Spurs' future. First, we're going to hear from Locked On Spurs.
Wemby's out. Obviously, the people that need to step up right now, you're looking at Fox, looking at Castle. But do you think maybe even Vassell is under the microscope? Like, all right, you were the supposed heir apparent to the number 2 spot before D Fox got here. Let's see what you got. I think all eyes are going to be in Devin Vassell. He's going to raise his game.
Another guy you might be able to see come up is probably Keldon Johnson. You've seen him show up a lot of times during the season when need be. When Devin was out and before Victor, Keldon was the best player on the team, averaging over 20 points a game, I believe, that one year. You're going to probably see a lot more of Stephon Castle. But the bigger question is this: knowing that De'Aaron Fox needs surgery in the offseason, at what point do you shut De'Aaron Fox down too? So this news is going to be probably snowballing into bigger things for the San Antonio Spurs.
All right, bouncing right off of that, there has been a lot of talk about whether the Spurs should continue their fight for a Western Conference play-in spot or should they improve their lottery odds. Let's dream a little bit. If the Spurs get Wembanyama back fully healthy next season, but they win the lottery, the draft lottery, and they select Cooper Flagg number 1 overall, Matt, are they immediately in the title conversation for next season?
I think if they land top 4, they have to be. They'll just have so much talent, man. Like if they get Dylan Harper and put him next to Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox, I don't know how that works, but if you put that together, that's going to be pretty amazing. There's all these guys that I think in this draft are going to be hugely impactful. If they get Flagg, that's a whole other ball of wax. Like that's just like, I don't know what you do there. I don't know how you're going to be able to kind of put that together, especially with the fact they already have their perimeter playmaker in Fox, right? Because you need to, I think, to put a guard with Flagg because he's going to work well as a connector. But having him as a connector next to Wembanyama would be absolutely ridiculous. We're a long way from that, but man, would that be an outrageous collection of talent?
Yeah, if they land Cooper Flagg, then yes, their immediate need to be in title contention. That would just be too much talent. And to Matt's point, anywhere in that top 4, really, they have some things that they need to balance out. Maybe even they look to trade, maybe someone else as far as Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson, depending on who they do draft. But they have an amazing opportunity with them and the Hawks pick as well to add some really good talent to this team. And so while they were already kind of a little bit ahead of their timeline, especially after the trade for De'Aaron Fox, I had them competing for a playoff spot. This gives them an opportunity to completely evaluate the other young talent that they have and add maybe 2 really key young guys for the future as well.
So they not only own their own pick for this upcoming draft, they own Atlanta's, and Atlanta could see a slide post trade deadline. And then they also own Atlanta's pick in 2027. So if that team doesn't improve, that's a juicy pick as well. So my question would be like, even if they don't win the lottery, maybe they get 2 top 7 picks, whether it's somewhere in the 2 to 7 range, they get a couple of those. Do you think they'll be able to move those assets and maybe some other future assets to go after a top veteran? And Hayes, what are some of the names that could be gettable in that scenario that you'd like to see paired along with Fox, Castle, and Wemby?
That's a great question. Now, I mean, if you're looking at going out and getting veteran talent, honestly, if Devin Booker does become available, I don't know how that works with Fox. But anybody with the Suns, if they make available, I would think you're looking at really just any veteran that comes available, like with the picks that they have and the young talent. The spread puts the Spurs right up there with the Rockets and the OKC Thunder as far as young assets that they can get any type of disgruntled star, to be honest with you.
If they offer the number 2 pick for Kawhi Leonard, what do the Clippers say?
Let's hope that's not it.
Like, what do they say? Kawhi Leonard would say no. Kawhi Leonard would be like, I'm not going back to San Antonio under no circumstances. But he doesn't have no trade. So, I
feel like they'd have to say yes, right? I mean, it allows them to get younger and pivot, and that number this is a very strong draft. So I think there will be a lot of suitors. And does Victor Wembanyama's they're signaling positivity right now, Matt. Yeah. But if that positivity were to get less positive as we move through the summer, could that alter their strategy when it comes to moving those picks for a veteran to get better more immediately and shift gears while they have De'Aaron Fox and Stephen Castle?
Yeah, I don't think I can speak on it just because, I think you have to know the details of Wembanyama's specific condition. I'm just not in a position to be qualified to speak on what the long term is going to look like for him, right? I'm choosing in a very, very strong deviation from my tendencies to be very positive about this and be like, it's going to be fine. He's going to be all right. It's a one-off. They caught it early. It's going to be okay. But I don't think you can really make an estimation of what their decision tree looks like unless you're on the inside with the Spurs.
It's just going to be very interesting because they will have so many options at play all summer long. All right, what we do know is that Wemby's early season exit will disqualify him from award season, including Defensive Player of the Year, where he was largely considered the favorite. Could it open the door for some other players, like a couple of pretty great defensive players on one of the, if not the best defensive team in the NBA, the Oklahoma City Thunder? Let's hear from Rylan Stiles of Locked On Thunder.
Right now at FanDuel, our good friends over there have Jaren Jackson Jr. as the favorite, Evan Mobley at number 2, and Lou Dort at number 3, plus 1,500 for Lou Dort. Shea and J-Dub slot in at 5 and 6 on these odds. So they have 3 members in the top 6 of the DPoY odds, and I think that could backfire on the Thunder when it comes to trying to win the award, because if you have voters giving first place votes to Shea, J-Dub, and Lou, which all realistically can happen. Shea got votes last year. J-Dub's been elite, and we know Lou's reputation and how good he is. Then you kind of split votes from one another, and it opens up this pathway for somebody else to win the award, like a Jaren Jackson Jr. But I do think, obviously, this makes it more realistic that somebody on the Thunder could win the honor.
Hayes, I'm going to give you Jaren Jackson Jr. or the field. Who you taking?
I'm taking Jaren Jackson Jr. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. has a great case to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think that he's on a team that is top 10 defensively. I think maybe top 6 now defensively. So I'm going to give it to Jaren Jackson Jr. if I had to pick between him and the field, because I think he's just that guy defensively to me.
I'll take the field. For sure. I think you have to take the field right now. As good as Jaren is, there's been kind of a resistance against him since kind of the Olympics, because people are like, he couldn't rebound. And I don't know why that continues to be any sort of discussion now and why we over-index on rebounds defensively, but it is kind of what it is. Another thing to kind of keep in mind is that the markers for this historically have been, are you a top 5 defense? And how are you in steals, blocks, and rebounds per game? Like, that's kind of been the markers for it. What's interesting is Jaren's not actually up there. AD is, and I don't know if AD is going to play enough games with this calf injury that he's dealing with, but I am kind of interested to see, like, if AD finishes on a Mavericks team that's top 5, even though the Lakers were like 18th, what does that look like? Because AD's third in rebounds, steals, and blocks per game combined. A couple of other interesting candidates are actually, I'll say this. The Thunder probably, I think, need to have the winner. And the reason I say that is Jared Dubin has got the stat that's era adjusted. We talked about this the other day. They have the number 2 defense of all time adjusted for era. So if you look at how good their defense is and you regulate it for how good the average offense is and look at that comparison, this is the second best defense we've ever seen. Now, I don't know if anecdotally I would say that. I would put like Pistons 04 up there, Bad Boys 88 to 90, I think probably go in that conversation. Spurs 05 to 09 go in that conversation for me. But I do think that like this Thunder defense is so elite. The problem is that if you actually look at like the measurable stuff, it looks at like Shea. And yet, like I've had this conversation, I just think it's an interesting discussion point where everyone's like, yeah, but Shea's not their best defender. And I'm like, but he guards the most. He has the most shots defended. He has the lowest points per shot allowed when he's defending. Oh, and the defensive rating is the best when he's on the court. Oh, and he's second in steals. So if you have a worse defender who has a better resume, who do you take? Talked to somebody very close to OKC yesterday, and they were very adamant it was Lu Dort. I think it's probably fair. I think Lu's a pretty big candidate here. I think Jaren's been amazing this year. I really do. I think he's been absolutely incredible. I do kind of think, though, that OKC's defensive profile demands that we give them something. This is where I think the 65 game, this is a great example of why the 65 game one is so tough. You want to know who this should honestly go to? It should be split between Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. They should share that award because that's how good they've been for OKC.
That's really interesting. I think when it comes to guards, it's almost like if you're not a utility player, you get penalized a little bit. Like if you're not the guy that they put on the guy, you get penalized.
I mean, if you actually ask me who's been the best defender in the NBA, if you're like, who's been the best defensive player in the NBA this season? It's Chris Dunn of the Clippers. I'm not kidding.
Whoa!
I'm not kidding. Go watch him. That dude, I mean, you talk about off night, it is night. Like, it is over for you. He is so disruptive and so good. By the way, Ivica Zubac, also top 10 in rebound, stocks, and steals per game. I think Zoo's got a really good case for this. I think there's a lot of really good candidates. We've seen better defense this year, I think, than in the last previous years. I do think that the fact that Memphis is so good defensively at the pace they play at is really positive for Jaren. But I kind of love this award right now because there's so many really great candidates we can look at and different ways to talk about it.
All right, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, I'll give you a crazy stat for another player that is up there in terms of the odds, Dyson Daniels. And the Philadelphia 76ers, they continue to struggle, and Joel Embiid continues to hint that that he needs to do something about that knee ASAP. We'll have more on that. Plus, are the Minnesota Timberwolves, should we be taking them more seriously as a dark horse candidate in the Western Conference? That's all ahead. Locked On NBA. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh and you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off of an order up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. Here's how to take advantage of the deal. After an epic 50-point performance, celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from your favorite spot delivered straight to your door. Staying up late, watching highlights, or just need a midnight snack? Use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. If you need a quick and easy lunch the next day, Dash Pass gets you your favorite meals with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees. Plus, now you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer. Planning to catch the next game? Order go-to snacks and meals at a discount and get ready for more high-scoring action. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe to stay up to date with local expert analysis. The Philadelphia 76ers took a brutal beatdown at the hands of the Boston Celtics last night. 124-104 was the final, but the post-game comments from their star players continue to be much more interesting than their final scores. Joel Embiid had this to say after the game, quote, "The way I was playing a year ago is not the way I'm playing right now. It sucks. I probably need to fix the problem, and then I'll be back at that level. But it's hard to have trust when you're not yourself." Here's Locked On 76ers with their reaction.
He needs to get it fixed. Everybody knows that. He says, "I'm not the same guy. I still think I can impact the game." You're not impacting the game like you used to impact the game. And not only that, Paul George isn't impacting the game like he used to.
What is holding him back at this point and not just saying, let me just end this season? Because I get it. He probably doesn't. He's going to hear flack from people, and people are going to say this, that, and the other. And that's just the reality of the situation. Oh, he's always injured. Couldn't finish out the year, whatever it might be. But you're not going to do anything anyway. At this point, you're on the outside looking in of the play-in tournament. You are 15 games under 500 in the worst season in a while, it seems like, in this Joel Embiid era. And now you look at it and you say, okay, well, they're on a downward spiral right now this season, and it is not going to get better. So why is he waiting?
There's the question, Matt. Why are they waiting? Why are the Sixers, Embiid, Paul George continuing to fight on in the face of all of this evidence that this isn't their year and there are obvious injury issues to take care of?
Yeah, I'm trying to be empathetic towards Joel. I am a little confused, man, where he's like, I probably need to get this fix. Go fix it. You get to make this decision. Make the best decision for you. The Sixers will make the best decision for them, and that may involve trading you. Go make the best decision for yourself. If you need another surgery and you need to take another year, go do it. This is your career and you get to make those decisions, and the money will be there when you get back because you're that dominant. So go do what you need to do, and the Sixers can figure out what they need to do. If the Sixers are applying pressure on him, being like, hey, we've only got this window, we need to try and win now, that's wrong of them. Like, there's no real point here. If he can't be the guy, if he's not able to play through this, and he's not, then he needs to be able to make those decisions for himself and go do what's best for him. I am definitely with Locked On Sixers here, where I'm just like, there's no point in this. Like, what's the point in trying to keep this going? I don't see what the point is. They're not good enough. He's not good enough because of the injury. This hasn't worked. Do what has to be done rather than what you want at this point.
Yeah, embrace at this point where you are and just come to the realization. We get what you were trying to build coming into the season. I actually liked a lot of what they did with the roster, but it just has not worked out. And trying to continually fight, to try to make the play-in or whatever else it is, your pick's top 6 protected. Everything is pointing towards you just getting to the realization, shutting down Joel Embiid, and seeing where the draft luck and lottery luck is going to take you, and try to figure it out after that point. This version of the team, it did not work. It doesn't seem like it's going to miraculously start working either. I still love the fact that Tyrese Maxey has stepped up as a leader for this team. He is your guy now as a leader. You had a really good story in Jared McCain as well before he went down with injury, and you may have to start asking some tough questions in regards to that. While we're talking about the next superstar that could be traded, Joel Embiid's name needs to be in that, because the Philadelphia 76ers may have to come to some realization at some point. It's better to stop trying to piece something together to compete now and start building around Maxey. I can understand if you want to give it another year, but I tell you what, it doesn't seem like Joel Embiid's getting any more healthy.
Let us know what you think on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. I've got some crazy stats for you, and I want to know which stat is the craziest. So LeBron James became the first person in NBA history to have multiple 40-point games at the age of 40. That happened last night. Here's one from Hawks PR. Dyson Daniels already had 151 steals this season. That is more than any NBA player has had in a full season since 2018-19. He has almost a third of the season remaining. And then finally, Victor Wembanyama is likely to end the season as the blocks champion, despite only playing in 46 games. Right now, he has a 3.8 to 2.4 blocks per game advantage over Walker Kessler. 176 total over 102 for Kessler, 104 over Brook Lopez. So Wemby's blocks, Dyson steals, LeBron James continuing to pour on the points despite being 40. Hayes, what's your craziest stat?
Craziest stat of the week?
Of those, which one do you like most?
I mean, I think what LeBron's able to do is always going to be amazing to me at 40 years old. I get it that he's a physical specimen, but what he's doing at that age, heck, I'm 38 years old and my bones hurt every single day, every day. So what LeBron's doing, I'm always going to give him credit for that. So shout out to LeBron for what he's able to accomplish at 40.
Matt, first team All-NBA for LeBron James, out of the question? I mean,
first team, yeah. Sorry. I mean, we got the guys that are going to go in, I think are pretty locked. I think it's got to be, even with Wemby out, it's got to be Shea, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, and Towns. Like you
now, if Giannis does it, now he's back. He was back last night, but if he doesn't make the games played.
Yeah, but if he doesn't make the games, Mark, it's like I said this yesterday. It's like if Giannis is out and you got to fill those last two spots behind Tatum, Jokic, and Shea, it's pick a Nick and pick a Cavalier, and that's how this kind of goes. But I think LeBron's second team All NBA, which at 40, come on, man, it's just
crazy.
It's unbelievable. Dyson steals, Mark, is crazy. What I also think is really nuts is how much steals have dropped off. If you look back, like the steals right now was so common in the 90s, which makes me wonder, like, were defenders that much? Like people would say, well, the defenders were just that much better and they were able to be more physical. And there's probably something to that. But I'm also just like, can guys not dribble? Like, why are you getting the ball stolen all the damn time in the 90s?
Maybe less spacing.
Tighten up.
Play a part of today.
Yeah, tighten up.
Less spacing, maybe more transition has affected that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I looked at this as well. The only post 2000 player that has total blocks in the top 15 is Allen Iverson when he had 225 in like the very early 2000s. But there's not anyone else post 2000 in the top 15.
I have one more. Giannis is going to figure, he's back tonight. He's going to finish most likely, he's going to finish averaging 30 points and 60% from the field. Only one other player in NBA history has done that. Him. Last year, he's the only player to do it. He's going to do it back-to-back seasons, putting up 30 on 60% shooting. The man's got 251 dunks this season, and he's only played in. It's absolutely wild. It's crazy.
Very quickly, Hayes, with that Victor Wembanyama number that I just gave out, that he's going to finish as blocks champion, despite he's going to miss the mark for these All-NBA awards. Should the NBA reevaluate the games missed rule, or do you like what it's done?
I sit in two different places, but like in some cases, I understand wanting to have a limit of our number of games that's required to be played, but at the same time, I think that some is missed in cases like that. And the Wemby one is one because I do think he still deserves to be Defensive Player of the Year. But I think when you look at the history of these awards, they've rarely gone to players that have played less than 65 games anyway. So they kind of just made an official rule of something that was kind of there anyway. So I'm in favor of keeping it for now. We'll see how it's only the second year of it. We'll see how it goes going forward.
I think they got to get rid of it. I'm the guy that thinks that they've got to do something about player management, about load management, but this isn't really the answer. When you got Tyrese Halliburton, who very clearly played hurt last year, and I think there's a lot of questions about whether or not that's still impacting him, and that's been the reason for his up and down season. I just don't think that there's any sort of real benefit here to doing it this way. I think you got to trust the voters to make those kind of decisions. And if you wanted to do it as kind of a corrective measure to get players to play more, I think it's worked. Like they're playing more unless they're hurt. And that's what you want. We've seen less rest nights in the last two seasons. Trust them and back off a little bit and get rid of that rule. And then maybe we can readdress it if it gets to be an issue again.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, Mark Williams and his agent speak for the first time since the failed trade that would have sent Williams to the Los Angeles Lakers, and we get some interesting numbers from Ben Beacon of Locked On Wolves. Should we take the Wolves more seriously as a dark horse contender as we enter the stretch run of the NBA season? That's all ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, live bets can be placed throughout the game. If you miss the opening tip-off, no problem. Want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback? You can stay in the action with FanDuel. Looking for a bigger payout? Combine live bets into one of your same-game parlays. We talked about the Defensive Player of the Year award odds. Stephon Castle of the Spurs still leading in the odds for NBA Rookie of the Year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is still the favorite to win MVP at minus 500. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for a shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. A day after center Mark Williams made his re-debut for the Charlotte Hornets against the team that he was supposed to be traded to, the Los Angeles Lakers, Williams' agent Jeff Schwartz released this statement on the failed physical that led to the trade being rescinded. Quote, "The overwhelming sentiment after conferring with multiple nationally recognized doctors is that the Los Angeles Lakers should not have failed Mark Williams on his physical," unquote. Mark Williams himself said, quote, "I don't think it was solely because of my physical. I feel like I could have contributed to them, but obviously they had second thoughts," unquote. Matt, should the NBA look into the process in the offseason of completing deadlines, or do you think, completing deadline deals, I should say, or do you think front offices should self-police if they feel like another organization is coming up with pretenses to decline trades that they have second thoughts on?
How about the other one just like doesn't do that? Like, instead of blaming the Hornets here, let's just blame the Lakers for acting clown show here. Two really good conspiracies I've heard about this over the last couple of weeks, and I'll say this. I'm not. This is speculative. It's just for fun, not reporting, etc. One, they got wind of a better deal that they could get this summer. That after they did the deal, someone called them and like, "Man, if you called us, we would have given you this guy for that package." And all of a sudden, the Lakers came up with a reason not to do it. The other one is that they never really intended to use that in case they needed it, but Luka wanted a center so badly, they wanted to look like they were doing it, and they knew they could fail Mark Williams' physical with what they already knew about his intel. So they had no real intention of doing it, but it was a sign of good faith to Luka, and they get to be like, "Oh, sorry, man, we tried, but, fell through. You know how these things go. But don't worry, we'll get you help this summer when they can actually get the guys that they want." Those two conspiracy theories make a lot more sense to me. But if we're talking about like what the solve should be here, Hayes, act like a professional basketball organization and don't ride out in a clown car. Would be my suggestion.
That would be the simplest thing, right? Is operate like a normal organization. Like, this whole thing has just been funny, hilarious, and outright sad to watch. This is how this trade situation has gone down. Do I feel like there may have been a reason why the Lakers failed him other than the physical part of it? Yeah, because this whole thing just seemed like we all knew that Mark Williams had injury history, and it doesn't seem like anything new came out in their physical. So, like, why cancel the trade? So I love your theory there, Matt. It's always something weird afoot with the Lakers, so that's not surprising there. But listen, the Hornets now get to keep Mark Williams. They could try to move him again at the trade deadline, and we get to keep hearing our good friend Doug talk about why teams should not trade for Mark Williams. So there's that part of it.
When the Lakers were asked about the statement from Jeff Schwartz, they reportedly declined to comment. Hey, watch out for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are quietly improving their offense and got a big win over OKC to close out the pre-All-Star break portion of their season. Locked On Wolves host Ben Beacon had a series of bold predictions for the Wolves, and here's one of them.
The next prediction is that the Wolves finish the season with a top 10 offensive unit and a top 10 defensive unit. Remember, last year they finished like 16th or 17th in offense. They were, of course, number one in defense. This year they've been top 10 in defense for most of the season, although they're 6th right now. They're currently 14th in offensive rating. I'm going off of cleaning the glass numbers. I mean, they're 6th in offense since January 1st, nearly 120 points per 100 possessions. The Wolves are 1st in free throw rate. They're 5th in offensive rebound rate. They're 10th in effective field goal percentage. The turnovers haven't gotten a whole lot better, but they're better across the board otherwise. They're taking better shots. They're getting to the line more frequently. They're running when it's advantageous. They're picking their spots, yes, but they're running when it's advantageous. 6th in offense since the first of the year. I think they can climb another 4 spots and be in the top 10 on both ends of the floor and join the best teams in the league, Boston, OKC, Cleveland, and Memphis, as the only teams that are in the top 10 on both sides of the floor. I think it's completely plausible. I really do.
Matt, the Wolves open up their stretch run tonight against the Houston Rockets. Why not the Wolves?
So I was doing projections after All-Star break based off of the numbers that I use, which focuses on like how are you in half court and how are you in transition, how often do you play those? And then weird thing popped up where I was putting out a bracket based off of that, and I looked and I saw that the number 5 team I had was the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like,
hey,
I think that team is dangerous as much as. Here's a good thing. You don't have to like each other to win basketball games. And I think that that's pretty evident with this squad. Julius Randle has never been a playoff performer. He's never been a playoff riser. But what if he has a year where that happens? They seem to have gotten past some of the issues they had earlier in the season. Finch is figuring stuff out for them, which I think helps. Having a great coach who works to figure out the problems that are stressing out the players, I think is really big. Here's a big thing. If they wind up in the 2-3 bracket, whether it's in the 6, the 7, the 3, or I don't think they can get up to 2. If they wind up in that bracket, do you know who doesn't want to see that? Your 2-seed Denver Nuggets. They don't want to see that team at all ever again in a playoff series. So, yeah, I think the Wolves can make a run.
I mean, the Wolves making a run would be fun for a lot of different reasons. I love Anthony Edwards. He's one of my favorite players in the league now. And them getting in the playoffs, I get it that it's been an up and down season. After the trade, they've looked like a worse team than what they were last year. But there's something about just the tenacity that they play with and how Anthony Edwards not only has called out the starting lineup over the course of the season, but also called himself out and held himself accountable. And when you have a leader like that, that makes them a dangerous team in the playoffs. So I agree. I think the Wolves here are a team to look out for that could really disrupt some of the brackets and projections in the Western Conference.
Another bold prediction from Ben Beacon, 51 wins for the Timberwolves. They'd have to win 20 between now and the end of the season. I'll give you one more stat. They are 22-15 against teams above 500. The only other team in the Western Conference with 20-plus wins against teams above 500, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah, so they haven't beaten teams that they need to beat. It'll be interesting to see what they look like when they do get Randall back into the swing of things. All right, let us know what you think about everything you heard here today on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA, where you can leave us a comment. Subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Enjoy tonight's action and be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here next week on Locked On NBA.